Hi everyone, Anna here, and today's 20-minute demo is brought to you by spring. We're going to paint some florist favorites, Lenten roses, and I grew these in my garden, so I'm really excited to paint these for you today. But remember, we've only got 20 minutes, so it's going to be an exercise in speed, prioritizing choices, and making sure we have a good color palette set out and ready to go. So if you would like to paint along, make sure you click on the link and download the reference photo below, grab your paints and your brushes, and let's get started. Here's my palette for today. I've got Warm Gray from Utrecht, Amethyst from Michael Harding, Transparent Oxide Brown from Rembrandt, Cadmium Yellow Light Hue from Sennelier, Vivid Blue from Utrecht, Titanium White 2 from Michael Harding, Permanent Green from Utrecht, Cadmium Green from Gamblin, and Ivory Black from Rembrandt. For brushes today, I've got two brushes from Rosemary & Company. I've got a size 4 Ivory long flat. It's a little bit beat up, but it should still do a good job of loading on the paint to start. And I've got a size 6 pure Sable Series 77. And I personally love this brush for really just doing just about anything once the initial layer of paint is on. It can do detail work, especially with these nice sharp corners here. And it's also soft enough that you can be really delicate with your edges. So let's give these two a try for today and see how it goes. All right, timer starting now. So I've got Warm Gray here, and I think that'll make a great initial tone for my painting. I'm dipping my brush in my solvent to get it nice and thin so that I can coat the canvas as fast as possible, because of course in today's efforts, speed is the name of the game. Added a little bit of transparent oxide brown, maybe some ivory, whoa, a little bit of ivory black to cool that down. Good thing it's thin. I can always go back with some paper towel and dab at it so that it's not too runny to work on, and also so that we get a nice little bit of texture here for our tone. And that, in a nutshell, is how I like to do very fast, very effective wet tone on my canvas. So there, we've got a nice light neutral gray to start. And I think the best way to approach these flowers would just be to figure out where we want them on the canvas. So perhaps create a little envelope for where they might go on here. And I want to make room for some of these little buds back here. Everything else can be kind of blurry, just like it is in the photograph. Thank goodness for portrait mode on our cell phones, huh? Helps us simplify. But these two flowers are definitely the focal point. I'm just using transparent oxide brown to block it in very quickly. And my brush pressure is very delicate so that I'm not lifting that tone on the canvas. From there, it's like, what do you do first? Do you go for the green first or those purples first? And I think I want to try what I would consider to be the most vibrant color first, because that I can always knock down later. If it's too bright or too pigmented, it's easier to gray down a color than it is to build up a color from gray. So I've got my cadmium green, my permanent green, and a little bit of yellow if I need to add even more warmth to it. And I can just start from the inside of the flower and work my way out. If you feel like it's just not quite yellow enough, that's all right. We can start a new mixture. I think warm white and the cadmium yellow will make for warm gray and cadmium yellow will make for a perfect neutral yellow-green for these outer rims of the flower petals. Starting from the center of the flower, in my experience, has turned out to be, I think, the most effective for getting that illusion of depth. You've got the light hitting the petals, and then it gradually gets deeper and darker as you get towards the center, because that is furthest from our light source. And so it just makes sense to kind of start with that darker center area of the flower and work out, because you can already get a feeling of three-dimensionality. Now, taking some warm gray and just a tiny bit of amethyst, I'm going to experiment with some of these purples in here. What's really cool about these flowers is that when they first start to bloom, they are this vivid lime green, reminiscent of all the other colors that are popping in early spring. And it's one of my favorite times of year because of that. That lime green is just a beautiful color. But then as they get more mature and start to bloom a little bit longer, then they mellow out in color and become a darker green, and more of there's more browns and deeper purples that show up, and it is still beautiful. And maybe the reason I love that so much is because peonies do the same thing. And as you guys all know, peonies are my favorite flower. Every spring and summer, I set aside a couple of months just to paint those. But Lenten roses are quickly rising to the top of some of my favorites. And it's because of that transformation that they take place during the bloom. You know, they're always changing and going through stages, much like people do. So to me, they're like little portraits. Perhaps that's why I like them so much. It's just like people, to inject our own humanness onto something as natural as a flower, but that's what we do, right? We humanize everything. Can't help it. So I'm painting a little portrait. I'm using transparent oxide brown and ivory black. It feels too dark right now, but it is helping some of these flowers to pop a little bit more. And so it might actually be a better design choice to keep that background fairly dark, so that that green is so bright, but so that those flowers will stand out even more in the composition. Permanent green is a nice green to have because it has more blue in it, and so it can serve as a blue in my painting. But as you can see, it's similar to phthalo in that it's very, very potent, and a little goes a long way. So if you find yourself doing what I just did, which was going, wow, that's really bright, take something like transparent brown or ivory black to knock that down. Transparent oxide brown is a great neutralizing color. If you need anything to be a little bit more natural and earthy looking, it's a great option for that. So here I've got a mix of transparent brown, ivory black, permanent green, and basically just dirty brush that's giving me this really nice, natural looking dark green. And I'm finding that I want to use that in a lot of different places because it's working well for me. It can be tempting to try to be really faithful to the reference photo, but because this is only 20 minutes, it's so important to just remember, okay, I need to focus on priorities. What are my priorities for this painting? And for me, it's going to be about getting these flowers to look three-dimensional, to make them look like they are just popping off the canvas. So I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. And this is a Sable brush, so it's got softer bristles. I've got a lot of paint on there now, loaded on with my bristle brush. And now I can take pretty much pure white and mix that with the purples that are up there. And starting from the edge of the petal, drag my brush away from the center so that I'm creating that illusion of turning the form. So the direction that you start your brush stroke really matters when it comes to that illusion and that effect in your painting. If you're enjoying this video, make sure you check out my latest instructional video on painting daffodils and Lenten roses. It's available now on my course site, Learn from Anna Rose Bain, so make sure you check that out. Because that's really what we are. We're illusionists, we're magicians. We are trying to create the illusion or the effect of three-dimensionality on a two-dimensional surface. And that's what painting is. And it's a tall order, right? So the more we can learn to employ our tools in helping us create those effects, the better. And you can still do it without having a ton of paint on your canvas. There are a lot of ways to create that illusion, and mostly it has to do with your values. How accurate are your values? And what direction are you going with your brush strokes? So you can use brush work to create three-dimensionality. But values are definitely the most important. Get those right first, and then you can start messing around more with painterliness and all that good stuff. So I find that if something isn't quite looking right, I check my values first. That is the first thing I look at. The next thing I look at is my drawing. Is my drawing somewhat accurate? How are these relationships working together, or are they not working together at all? And if so, why not? That often has to do with your drawing. And if you're not sure why it's not working, take a second to squint at it and see, okay, what stands out, what needs to stand out more, what's standing out too much. Keep asking yourself these questions as you go. Does it need more yellow? Does it need more red? This painting doesn't have a lot of red in it. Our purple is essentially our red. Or does it need blue, or does it need to be darker or lighter? Do I need to move a shape over? Do I need to lose an edge? Maybe combine some of these edges here. Do I need to sharpen an edge? Such as this one down here. Could be a little sharper. I'm already thinking about those things, and I'm only 12 minutes into this painting, not even. But 12 minutes, that means we don't have a lot of time left. Can we pull it together? It doesn't get easier. I've done so many of these, and I still feel like when the timer goes off, I'm just not ready for it. It catches me by surprise every time. So if you look at my palette, I'm mixing up a combination of the cadmium green, some of the cadmium yellow light hue, and a little bit of white to get these center shapes here. And there's so much more softening and refining and color transitions that I want to play around with. But if the whole idea is to just get the main idea, then I think I might be pretty well on track here. Remember, this is an exercise. It's not a finished painting. It's something we do to keep our brains sharp, to keep our painting muscles extra strong. And it's so good for us. In fact, I recently entered a speed painting competition. I didn't even know there was such a thing, but I got invited to do it. And I'm doing it this summer. I'm so excited to give it a try. It's gonna be the ultimate test. I think if I make it to the last round, I'd be required to do a 24 by 36 in 90 minutes. Can you believe that? 90 minutes. And I have to get out my big brushes. And that really does help. The bigger the brush, the more coverage, right? Get out those house brushes. But just be asking yourself, what does it need? What is the most important thing that I need to do to add to this painting right now? Because I could run out of time any minute. Timer's gonna go off so soon. And I gotta make this pop. So there are a lot of the time you'll see a lot of that canvas showing through, and that can be very distracting. Don't focus on that too much. I know that's what I'm doing right now, but mostly I'm doing it because I want to connect my shapes. So I want all of these three shapes to feel like they are connected and harmonious with each other. So that's why I was filling in that space there. But in some cases that won't be as important or necessary. And then it's like, how much do I finish that one up there? I do want to hint at some of the leaves. So I started it, but now I need to go lighter with some of these values. So this one, can I do it in just a couple brush strokes? Just make these suggestions. There's another petal back here. That's nice because it helps balance out some of the greens down here. And then more up above and behind. Shaving in a little bit there, and actually I want to bring back that sharp edge, which again, the direction of the brush stroke really matters, and I chose poorly that first time, so trying again. Remember that from Indiana Jones? You chose poorly. One of my favorite movies. I think about that. I have that voice in my head sometimes when I make a bad brush stroke. Oops. Thankfully, brush strokes are not a life and death situation. It's all play at this point. In fact, with just 3 minutes left, I want to see if I can make this background look a little bit less busy. So I'm going to darken it. I'm going to take some of that transparent oxide brown, which I think is going to help make those greens look even more beautiful. And here, the brush work is important because I'm basically just trying to finish off the edges without having to do a lot more detail at this point. So squinting, I can always go in with some more lights. And if I have time, put in some more detail, but it's not really looking that way. So what can I do with the time I have left? I'm always a little nervous about doing flowers for a 20-minute demo because sometimes they go really well, and other times I spend hours just picking at them. So you just never know. Especially flowers that have like a very symmetrical shape, ones with a lot of petals, you can fudge it a little bit more. Less than 2 minutes to go. So I'm going to squint down and just start putting in some blurry color shapes to finish this off. Add some pops of light to show that that's a bud. And a little bit of dark for the inside of it, where it's opening up. But this would normally be a detail that I would carefully observe rather than just attacking it the way I am right now. Sometimes though, the attack approach ends up being a better result because you're not overthinking it. So there's a balance there. There's a way that you can find a perfect combination of both careful observation and instinctive painting, where you're just responding to what you're seeing. Then that is a beautiful relationship to find in your painting. And it can make for such an interesting finished product, where some areas of the painting are very detailed and others are much more painterly. Okay, well, that is time. Just like that, it went so fast, but really, really fun. If I had another 20 minutes, I think I'd be able to pull this together a little bit more, but it's not too shabby for 20 minutes. So give this one a try, see if you can do it. I would love to see your results. You can find the reference photo in the links below, and all of my materials are listed. And as always, make sure you check out my other videos, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for future 20-minute paintings. So thanks for watching and happy painting.